Financial charges or collections activity, including litigation.
From the WinBet studio, win with WinBet. WTFX Gallatin, Nashville. Titans training camp starts July 27th on your home for Titans football. Trending now at 104.5 The Zone.
The big news is obviously the fact that the University of Texas in Oklahoma may be coming to the SEC. At least that is according to the Houston Chronicle. They are reporting that there is a potential reach out that Texas and Oklahoma have had to see the interest of the SEC and if they would accept them as a member. And rumors are that this decision should be made and could be made within the next couple of weeks. Also developing news right now in the NFL, as it is being said first reported by the NFL Network, that if an NFL game is canceled this season due to a team having a COVID outbreak, the team with the outbreak of unvaccinated players will forfeit the game and will receive a loss. But here's the big kicker. Both teams will not receive their weekly salary when it does come to that particular game. For all of the biggest news, make sure that you continue to stay right here on 104.5 The Zone. But for all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans, the Vols, and Blaine and Mickey next. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The 3HL coming up today at 3. Now it's time for Blaine and Mickey on 104.5 The Zone.
Woo, man, I love the sound of that. Woo, because it means we're ready to go. The sprint for the next couple of hours. We are here and ready to make it happen for you. Mickey Ryan and Braden Gall filling in again today for the Hitman. One last day for Braden, 4 days of what I'm calling Braden Gall held hostage. I know you're going to enjoy this. You can go back and listen to the stuff we've done on the Zone podcast page. You can also catch everything he does at 440 Sports. Some great stuff there. And Preds fans, soccer fans, there's a lot of stuff there, Braden, for sports fans of all types in Nashville. You explained to me your philosophy of 440 Sports, and I love it. You're giving all sorts of people a good place to stop and get information.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about this as long as you want to, Mickey. I don't know if there's anything else happening in college football right now. No, I think there's so many. This city's getting bigger and bigger, and we got 3 professional sports teams, and I think there's just so many good people doing good work. I just want to carve out my little niche and check out all the shows. We got SEC stuff there, talking about expansion, which we're going to do today on this show. We've got a media show that comes out on Fridays, Lamestream Sports. So, which of course, you've tried to avoid. It seems like you're ducking me, Mickey, coming on the show. Like if I asked, would you come on the show, or are you ducking me? Are you scared to come on Lamestream Sports?
I'm not scared at all. My lameness has been exposed daily for 2 hours on this radio program, so I'm happy to come and share it with others. Let's go ahead and shift into the big stories of the day. And one is the big story that broke yesterday in our last segment. I was like, wait, what is this? Houston Chronicle, Texas and Oklahoma. Within 2 weeks, this was via Football Scoop, who had put their name on it as well, essentially saying, yeah, man, this is the Houston Chronicle broke the story, but we're here to tell you we're on board with it. Texas and Oklahoma leaving the SEC. And this is funny because I was listening to the last segment of Buck's show, and Joe Hunk, who's filling in today for Lucas, and will do a great job as he always does. And you can hear Joe as part of 3HL every day on the station. He read the poll results, and it was essentially, for SEC fans, do you want Texas and Oklahoma in expansion? And he said it was 50-50. Like, there are people saying, no, we don't want them. I got to tell you, man, what you're seeing today is your conference. I don't care what conference you root for. It's not going to be the same. And probably really soon, I would say that it's like a pedal tavern and it's going by. You need to go ahead and jump on that thing because you don't want to get left behind by it.
No, I think this is, to me, it's insane for the SEC not to want to say yes to Texas and Oklahoma. And from what I did, this is one of those stories, Mickey, especially for those of us who've worked in college athletics, that like, if I go outside for 30 minutes to mow the lawn, I feel like I'm not doing my job because like, I don't know what happened for 30 minutes and I feel disconnected to the story. I talked to a lot of people down in Austin last night as this was sort of unfolding, just to gauge like how serious do you guys think this is, or is this just Texas being Texas? Like Texas always wants to think that they are changing the world, that they're the thing that can change everything, and frankly, they are the most powerful athletic department in the country. They're the most lucrative, most powerful. They're the only one that can go like 7-5 and still make $200 million. Like it's just how it is. And so they are very serious with this. They are down the road with this. And what I've been told is the only reason all of this has gotten out is that other people in the Big 12 are terrified and want to stop it. So the only reason this is out right now is because people are trying to gain public opinion on their side to get this shut down, to try to save the Big 12. Texas, I have been told, is basically out the door. They're ready to leave, whether it's the SEC or somewhere else. They want to be a free agent. They want to go to the highest bidder. And there is only one first phone call if you are Texas. And the first phone call is to Greg Sankey into the SEC. And it would be absolutely idiotic for the SEC not to say yes because of exactly what you said. You have to view college football 15, 20 years from now. What does it look like? Is it 4 super conferences? Does it look like the NFL? What does it look like? And Oklahoma and Texas in a 16-team SEC gives you permanent stability forever as a conference, as the most powerful, the most successful, the most talented, and the most financially viable league that has ever been created, ever. It puts a stake in the Big 12. It's a no-brainer if you're the SEC, and it's why I think Texas people are so optimistic about this actually happening, which is crazy to me because it broke like yesterday afternoon.
And this is the thing. It's one of those things that you live for in the business that we do. You're live on the radio, and some entity just tweets out, hey, Texas and Oklahoma just told the Big 12 they're leaving. They're going to join the SEC. That's manna from heaven, literally just raining down upon your broadcast. Right. And you're like, oh, my gosh. But then once you think about it, what did we start the show with saying yesterday or the day before? It was the day before. Greg Sankey's the most powerful guy in sports. Or Monday, maybe it's Thursday. The days run together for me.
All of the days can start with Greg Sankey is the most powerful man in college football. That's just how you can start your morning. Drink a cup of coffee, acknowledge, bow down to Greg Sankey.
Print that on the mug that you drink out of.
Right.
So if we start the show and started the week of shows acknowledging that as SEC media days get going, and then people are kind of reminded, and maybe even by Greg Sankey himself, when there was indecision everywhere, they made a plan. We're going to play each other 10 times, and we're going to go ahead and start our season. Here's when we're going to start it, and away we go. They've been decisive about things. They've been on the cutting edge of things because of the SEC. And this is another thing we discussed. There was actually a college football season last year. They had a clear and concise plan. They executed it to the best of their abilities. Then everybody wound up playing, including the cameo appearance from the Pac-12, which, no offense to anybody from the Pac-12, it's beautiful country out there, and I love it. My thing was, why bother? You have you can play each other, but there's no national significance worry that you're going to play for the championship ultimately. And they proved me right. And again, I got nothing but love. It's beautiful country out there, and I love going out west to visit. But everybody else is scrambling right now like cockroaches when you turn the light on. And I thought about this for the Big Ten, Braden, and you could probably speak to this way better than I could. Because of the academic way that they do business in their alignment, they can't just take anybody. You have to fit academically into the Big Ten. So it's not like you can go, oh, well, they'll just take everybody who's left that they want in the Big 12. There has to be an academic alignment as well as a sports alignment.
Like West Virginia is fascinating in all of this because really West Virginia is an SEC school. Missouri is a Big Ten school that ended up in the SEC. But once you join the SEC, you never leave. And West Virginia fits in this conference. Like they just like from a personality standpoint, culturally, like it's a small town, like football is king. Like it's just it's an SEC cultural school, but they're probably the best football program maybe after Oklahoma and Texas, with the exception of maybe Oklahoma State, that would be available should Texas and OU join the SEC? West Virginia might be the best program available from like a size and scope and tradition and TV and all that other stuff, but like they don't fit in the ACC or the Big Ten from an academic standpoint. I talked to a Big 12 coach yesterday. I think Kansas is the team that I think the Big Ten would go after, number one. I don't know, unbelievable basketball school, really good academic school, gives them a sort of an extension of their Nebraska sort of footprint a little bit. I don't know who the second school would be that they go after. Iowa State is logical, but Iowa State, they already have Iowa, so I could see it could be TCU. Very good academic school, gives them the Dallas Fort Worth market. So Kansas and TCU could be the two that make a lot of sense that I've heard mentioned. The other ones are just going to be left either creating their own new league or going out to the Pac-12. Notre Dame could easily slide into the ACC and they could pluck one more school, and the ACC could easily match the SEC's maneuvers in all of this. The issue is I just don't see anyone who can even come close to matching the football prowess of SEC if they were to add Texas and Oklahoma. And everybody's playing this right now, I think, the right way. A&M and Missouri don't want Texas on the outside, outwardly facing. They want to appear to not want Texas and Oklahoma. And so that's why Ross Bjork is out there saying all that we want to be the only brand in Texas. You know what changes Ross Bjork's opinion? An extra zero at the end of his budget at the end of the year when Texas and Oklahoma make the league an extra $100 million a year. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, that this is all about money. And so, again, you can complain about adding Oklahoma and Texas. I don't know why. I honestly can't come up with a reason other than maybe it's getting too big for your taste. But like, think about having Texas and Texas A&M back again. Think about having Oklahoma. You know how many coaches in the SEC would want to run it up on Oklahoma and Texas? You know how much vitriol there would be? It would be spectacular.
All of it, yes.
For viewing, it would be amazing. And you know what that means? TV ratings go up. You can charge more for your contract and your rights, and more tickets are sold. It is a no-brainer if you are the SEC and they want to come. And by all accounts, Oklahoma is just sort of riding shotgun right now. But by all accounts, everything I've heard, it's very serious. Missouri will vote against it as well, from what I've been told. That they need to get 11 yes votes in the SEC to say yes to get them to come in. I don't see A&M getting any more than Missouri. I think 12-2 is what the vote would be if they took it today, if I had to guess. And I think behind closed doors, Missouri and A&M are even saying, yeah, it's okay. We'll take. We want to vote publicly so that you guys can't accuse us of liking Texas, but privately we're going to like all that money that they bring to the table.
All right, three observations based on everything you said. Number one, and I truly believe this, Ross Bjork looks like an action figure. Like if you went to the store and bought a Ross Bjork action figure and he like barked out, doctrine of college athletics. I don't know what superpowers he would have, but he looks like an action figure.
His superpower is making burner phones disappear from Oxford. That is his superpower.
So he would come with a burner phone that would disappear. Like you'd have to get it wet and it would reappear.
It's invisible ink on a phone, I guess. Yeah.
Right. So for children, you'd have to find a way to make the gimmick work, but he looks like an action figure. Number two, for everybody who's young and they're listening to the show and they're like, Texas is stupid. You guys have been saying this for 2 days. Texas is so great. Money in Texas. Google Texas. Just Google Texas football. Google it. Just Google it. And it will just explode in your face with history. And you'll be blown away by what maybe you didn't know. And I get it. This is an old guy yelling into a microphone about how great Texas is. Sometimes you got to look past your own scope of how far back you can see things. Texas is one of the biggest brand names in college football history, like Braden has been saying. I mean, you don't write the history of college football without the Texas Longhorns. That's the whole thing. You can get them in your conference. Okay, that's point number two.
Yeah, Oklahoma's the good football team. Texas is the powerful brand. That's what you're getting, right?
Money.
That's the goal here.
Texas
isn't great. Texas isn't great at football, although they do have a national championship way sooner than Tennessee does, for example. But
like 6 years.
It doesn't matter if they're 8-4. What matters is how many dollars you can tack onto the television contract. That's all that matters.
And the third point is just that. I've read everything I could find about this. CBS Sports did basically a timeline of it. I saw Barrett Salia tweeted this out. The expected revenue jump with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma per school would go from 44, which was the current payout amount, to 60. So that's 16 more million just straight off the top from the jump. 16 more $1 million just to go, I vote yes to those. That's, you would make $16 million for it when they pass out the little slips if you would check the yes box. $16 million. Yes.
That's $224 million per year for the conference by checking the yes box. So would you like to go to prom with me? Yes or no? Like the answer is yes, Greg Sankey. So the real issue is all about the legal stuff. Like if the SEC wants them, they're there and they'll come, and it's the right move for everybody. Like it's probably not the right move for the rest of college football, honestly. It may not be healthy for the rest of college football, but it is great for the SEC and great for those two schools. And it's great for lawyers that are going to get paid a boatload of cash to try to figure out how to make it all work legally. That's the bigger question.
Yeah, the current TV contracts for Oklahoma and Texas go through 2025 right now. That's where their rights are assigned, are with the Big 12 until 2025. So some hoops would have to be jumped through. Ron Slay probably can't jump through any hoops, but he could jump up and dunk on you, and he's about to dunk on us because he joins us next from 3HL. He has been in Hoover covering all the crazy SEC Media Day stuff, including their interview with Greg Sankey yesterday, where they got I want to talk about this season. He pinned him down. We're going to pin down Ron next. It's Blaine and Mickey with special guest Braden Gall, 104.5 The Zone.
Rumors are swirling that the SEC is expanding, but SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey isn't talking.
fresh off a visit to Birmingham. Let me ask you this, just on a personal basis. What does a Ron Slay visit to Birmingham, Alabama look like, and what is it comprised of?
Man, first of all, it's a lot.
Be honest, Slay.
It involves first. I was a chauffeur. That's first and foremost. Chauffeuring my beautiful team down there and back. That was one. Then it relied on me opening up the Boom Boom Room to guests that have never been in the Boom Boom Room before, and they gave good answers. Also, I would like to announce we were given 2 awards, and I like to think I had a part in that. Commissioner Sankey, he didn't make this public, so I'm giving you guys breaking news. He whispered in my ear and said, "You guys are the best looking and the most athletic looking bunch that we have down here." So, hey, those 2 awards, from the player's perspective of Ron Slay, Mickey, I loved it. I came away winning. So, hey.
Slay, I have been to Radio Row in Hoover, Alabama. The best looking, most athletic bar is not very high to clear. All right, dude?
Yeah. See, Bray, don't you spoil it. Don't spoil it for everybody. See, don't you let me paint the picture. You just sell the picture I paint. Don't you repaint it.
All right. Well, did you get any good food? Any good spots down there you can tell the people about when they visit Birmingham?
Man, this is the problem. I was given the list late, and honestly, Joe Hunk warned me and told me, man, when you go down there, I'm telling you, the first day your adrenaline gonna be pumping, you're not gonna get no sleep. The second day you're gonna be running on fumes, you ain't gonna be doing nothing but want to get there and sleep and have a drink. So I really didn't get out and test any foods, man, because it was such a scramble, and I was in such. Man, it's an extravaganza that's put on for SEC media football for people that have never been. Like, it's something you should want to see. If you're a fan of SEC sports and your favorite college football team is in the SEC, you should go down there and experience it, man. It is, it's some work, man, and you don't realize this as a player, you know what I mean? But being on the media side, totally different. So I didn't get to really get out and see any restaurants or test any food, but I did notice they had a lot of boom boom sauce down there for stuff like tater tots and wings, and nobody ran it by me. So I'm gonna take that to the city council down there and see if I can get that removed.
So there were 1,600 media members credentialed like 2 years ago at SEC Media Days. Like when you were playing and you went to basketball, like how many people were walking around asking questions of basketball players before the season started?
Man, first and foremost, man, it was nowhere near what football had taken place. But we did have our fair share, and it was like a whirlwind. You get off the jet, they swoop you into the hotel, you go straight to the podium, get down, and then at that time we had a table that we used to go to. And I brought this up to Commissioner Sankey. You guys can listen to it on the podcast. But I brought it up to him, and he was like, at that time, I do remember the tables. He was like, yeah, we improved a lot of things since then. You know, that 03 was when he was involved with it. So he did remember that, sitting down at the round table and just getting rushed. I probably had, at that time, man, I was coming off an injury and, you know, trying to get back. I probably had at least 40 people around me asking questions, which was wild. You know, usually you're just dealing with the local media, and then, you know, you make it to the NCAA tournament, you see a whirlwind. But outside of the NCAA tournament, it was the next best thing for me.
Ron Slay from 3HL, our guest, by the way. I've never been in the Boom Boom Room myself, so hopefully someday that will be something that happens.
Don't you worry, Mickey.
Okay, all right.
Do I need to lock the door?
Worried.
Do I need to lock the door now, or are we doing this now?
No. We're gonna prep him because that's my brother. Like, that's my brother right there, Hunk. Don't lock the door on him yet. Man, Mickey's eyes might get real big if he hear that door locked.
They might, for sure. Did Greg Sankey's eyes get real big yesterday when you guys were asking him about this merger multiple times?
Hey,
by the way, people can check that out on the podcast page.
Oh my gosh, man! Like, when we asked him, he looked at us like, "Dude, I got hit with it right when you got hit with it." Like, first of all, who let this out? That's the look he had on his face. Like, hey, man, who told them I was hiding a Chevelle in the garage, man, when you ain't supposed to have no drop tops out right now? So it was like, man, he had a pissed off look about it. But he did answer the questions and he dodged them as well as he could. And it was like he was caught off guard with it, and like it's been happening in the works, and he wanted to announce it when he did. And this right here was by force, not by choice. So I think he did a terrific job of dodging the questions and answering it the best he could. But man, he was not a happy camper. He went back and regrouped and came back out and did some more radio interviews after hours. But we caught him first, so we got the raw reaction, and it was. Yeah, this would have made Bart Simpson walk to the chalkboard and write his name over and over.
It was Oklahoma State, by the way, Ron. That's who let it all out. It was definitely Oklahoma State.
Wow.
What? That just pure speculation on my part here.
Okay.
Let me ask you about that. Like, my favorite part of SEC Media Days is getting to sit down and talk with players and see their personalities and see how thoughtful they are and their interests outside of sports. Who struck you this week that you've had a chance to, whether it was an interview, whether it was just standing in the hallway, like who do fans need to know about to watch this season, because they're like, man, that kid right there was just incredible.
Man, immediately off the page is Alontae Taylor. Like whatever was going on last year with him and Pruitt, I don't understand it, but this young man, the way he articulates himself, the way he opens up to people, he doesn't hide anything. What you see is what you're going to get from him, and he's going to let you know about it. So he was one. Another one was Jordan Davis from Georgia. Woo, he's a big boy. I know I'm big, but Jordan Davis, Lord have mercy. Like it's some human beings, man, that I've seen, and John Henderson is one. I sit him right beside Albert Haynesworth or John Henderson, probably about 2 inches shorter. But, boy, he take up some space. So he was impressive. Stingley was one that was kind of quiet, but once he got in the boom room, he opened up, had to throw a couple jabs at him to get him, to let his guard down. But he was good. Stingley was one, man, that I was really impressed by. And then, of course, Mechie from Alabama, man. When he got in the boom room, he was the guy that was really impressive. I didn't know he was from Nigeria. He opened up about a lot of things, and his confidence, man. That's one thing I look for in the players when I get to see them in person and then get to have a conversation with them. The confidence was really, really impressive from these young men, man. And I think the biggest shocker was the big guy. I don't know how to say his last name, but Kingsley from South Carolina. He was really impressive. So. And I didn't think South Carolina, as a Vol fan, I'm not too impressed by anything what South Carolina does. But this young man, hey, he was on point, and then we had Davion Davis who wanted to challenge me to a game of basketball, but I know Vanderbilt produces some smart guys, but I don't want to say he's too bright, anyway. But that's neither here nor there.
Ron Slay, the Shade Throwing Tour begins following SEC Media Days. The 3HL crew were down there. You can catch all their interviews again on the Zone podcast page. He joins us courtesy of the Mark Spade Real Estate Hotline. So, Slay, Josh Heupel, he spoke. A, did you learn anything about him that you didn't know? And B, do you feel better, worse, or the same about him leading your beloved Vols football team now that you've heard him address the SEC media and the world?
You know what? I feel about the same. I feel he's getting more comfortable each interview he does, and the ones that he does one-on-one outside of being at a podium, you kind of get the more relatable Heupel. And I think who he really is when he does those interviews. The ones at the podium, he's kind of speeding through it, getting his words out, run-on sentences and everything, kind of like his offense. But outside of that, he's a guy, man, that can really didn't want to set the bar too high or set a bar at all, but a guy that more so focused on the family and the relationships and building relationships with the players. Man, what I didn't really know was that these players were broken. And I think we saw that by all these kids going into the transfer portal. And he's having to do a job as far as not only being a head football coach, but being a psychiatrist, a father, an uncle, brother, then have to turn around and be the coach again. Like, He has his plate full, man. I think he's handling it well. As far as anything I didn't know, I did get an opportunity to talk to him during the spring game in orange and white. To come back and talk to him in this setting after meeting him, he was way more relaxed again. So, it wasn't too much given, but as a man standing there and talking to him, I feel comfortable with him leading the young men up on the hill.
Yeah, I thought he sounded like a professional adult head football coach, Ron, and that's not always been the case at Tennessee.
Right. This is very true. This is very true. I know one thing for sure, man. The players can relate. I think he did a great job assembling his staff and, not having a big gap as far as having like a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old right there trying to call plays, but having somebody that can relate to these guys. And I think you saw that across the whole landscape of the coaches that we were able to interview. You saw that with Orgeron. You saw that with a lot of the coaches. So that's a big part, man, being able to relate to these kids and bridge the gap, which is missing in a lot of these programs. So I think Heupel has a jump on that.
Ron Slay, our guest from 3HL. Ron, how about Nick Saban? He was at a high school coaches convention on his way to SEC Media Days and just dropping that his quarterback's already made $1 million in endorsements, knowing then he'll get asked about it again at SEC Media Days because it's out there. But it's like, yeah, I mean, you can win championships. You can make $1 million. I mean, Alabama's not a bad place to be, Slay.
Hey, boy, when you say strategic, that man there is playing chess, man. Coach Saban is. Hey, that was one bomb that he dropped on him. Like, what as a quarterback, a top 20 quarterback in the nation, how do you turn it down? Even if you got to go and wait your turn, how do you turn it down? You're like, it's crazy. He knew exactly what he was doing. But I tell you what, man, that was my first time seeing him outside of the sidelines and coaching. I'm a big fan of The Godfather. This man moves like Michael Corleone. I'm like, it's so many state troopers, Secret Service people. I think I saw a sniper laying down in the mall by Chick-fil-A. Like, it was crazy, man. Like, but it is what it is, man. I guess he's the Don, so you got to protect the Don.
You guys, it's funny. He's talking about his quarterback making $1 million who has not started a game, by the way. Let's be honest. Dude has not even started a game yet. Now, I will ask you this. What was there any team that you went into the event thinking one way about and on the field came out of the event, whether worse, better or worse, whatever, either side of the coin, did you go into the event thinking, all right, I think X, Y, and Z about this team. Now I feel differently about that team. Is there a team that changed your opinion and your experience being down there talking to all these folks?
Yeah, I think one that comes to mind right away is, listen, I hate to say this, but I'm going to be a media member on this one. Florida Gators, man. They really changed my mind, being able to talk to their defensive guys, the linebacker and the D lineman. They, like the way they presented themselves, the energy that they had, the way they talked about being able to get back in spring football around their guys, having no really restrictions, no COVID restrictions, and be able to get active was really impressive. And I know that defense was probably the worst that they've seen in a long, long time, and probably could have had one of those guys that rummaged through Buck's trash, the little trash rats running through, playing better defense than them. But they presented themselves like they've been working and they're ready to get at it, and they walked around like they had a chip on their shoulder, ready to come out and prove a point. Another one that was unexpected, and I know this man, but I haven't talked to him since high school. He was very, very impressive. That's Clark Lee. Like, nothing sports with Clark Lee. And as much as I like to give the Commodores hell, they got a great hire in Clark Lee, man. And this is one of the first times that I've seen a situation where people in the mid-state are backing him. And they should be. I salute him, man. He carries himself very well. Looks like he's ready to get his point across to his guys, and they're latching on to it. So, he had a long trail ahead, but I think they got the right guy right there in place of Vandy.
Ron Slay, our guest on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Shameless plug. Clark Lee will join us at around 2:20 today. Vanderbilt head coach. Thank you for leading us. Yeah, thank you. That's radio, just radio gold, Slay. You're a pro. So you got fired up about the Gators down there. Are you fired up enough to think they can beat Georgia this year in the East? Are you that on to the Gators now?
If you would have asked me Tuesday night after probably about 5 or 6 Tito's, I would have said, yeah. But I'm sober right now, so no.
Okay. All right.
it won't come. I think Georgia's defense is too serious.
At least he's honest.
Okay. All right. So it's just as simple this year as Bama and Georgia again, you say?
Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, yeah, I believe so. And I think if that defense, depending on what that quarterback play does, I think Mullen will have those guys ready to go. And we're in a stage now where you don't see, and Coach Orgeron hit on this, you don't see the 13 or 20 teams being held to 13 or 20 or 27. Like, you hold a team to 32 or 30, you got a great opportunity to win the way people are scoring in the SEC now. So I think this Florida team will shock a couple of people, not enough to shock Georgia, though. I think that defense is just a little different, especially looking at Big Davis, man. That guy. That big guy, I want to walk around with him to see how many people bow down to him, because that's a big old guy, man.
Well, he wants to walk around with you, too, I'm quite sure, because he recognizes the greatness of Ron Slay, just like we all do. At Ron Slay 35, you can follow him on Twitter there. You can catch him every day on this station on 3HL following this Blaine and Mickey program. Slay, thank you, man. Appreciate the time today, buddy.
Man, I appreciate you guys having me on. Make sure you tell Clark Lee, in my book, he got best dressed, man. That blazer in person looked really, really good. So he's starting out on the right foot.
Okay.
That's the last Commodore. Congratulations, you'll ever hear from me this year too. So take that.
Nice coach. All right, we'll pass that along to Ron Slay. Again, you can hear him today starting at 3:00 with Brent and Babs on 3HL. This is Blaine and Mickey. When we come back, there's some big news out of the NFL, like really big news regarding COVID and your team and forfeits and what happens if anyway, you will want to hear this, and it's next on Blaine and Mickey with Braden Gall.
Non-stop Titans talk and reaction. That's what we do.
But he's driven back inside the 5, and they fling him to
you and ourselves, hopefully, and Joe Hunk, who's filling in for Lucas Panzica throughout the rest of this hour and next hour. Vanderbilt Clark Lee, football head coach Clark Lee, set to join us at 2:20, so we're looking forward to catching up with Coach Lee. This news out of the NFL, Tom Pelissero basically went on a Twitter filibuster earlier, Braden, and just started laying it all out, this NFL memo that had been leaked about COVID. And here's kind of the big takeaways for me. If a game cannot be rescheduled during the 18-week season, and they said there will not be a Week 19 added to fill in dates, due to a COVID outbreak among unvaccinated players, the team with the outbreak will forfeit the game. They will be credited with a loss. And this was the last tweet that I saw of the whole run from Pelissero. I might have led with this. Talk about burying the lead. If a game is canceled and cannot be rescheduled within the current 18-week schedule due to a COVID outbreak, neither team's players will receive their weekly paragraph 5 salary. Nobody gets paid.
Now, how does this work for like a Tannehill restructure where he got all of his money as a lump sum in the beginning? All of a sudden, if I'm one of those guys that got my contracts reworked, I'm really, really happy about it. No, look, this is what this is what Greg Sankey did on Monday. This is what every conference commissioner has done during all these media days events. This is what's happened with the Olympics. This is not like new, strange territory. They are not, because of the NFLPA and how it's collectively bargained, they cannot mandate vaccines. You can mandate vaccines legally in this country for schools and workplaces, and I think it's been litigated for like 100 years. But because of the PA, they cannot mandate vaccines. But you know what they can do? They can make your life absolutely miserable if you don't get a vaccine. And so that's the college football is laying out the rules in July. The NFL is laying out the rules in July. The Olympics laid out the rules before the Olympics. The College World Series rules were laid out before the College World Series. Baseball just had this happen right with the Yankees. Everyone knows the rules. And unless you are an epidemiologist or work for the CDC, I don't care about your opinion about the rules. Smart, intelligent people make the rules. And as long as everybody knows the rules, you cannot complain if you break the rules, right? Like, isn't that all we're asking for if you're Titans fans? Is just everyone is treated equally. And maybe that didn't happen last year because you thought maybe you were treated like a guinea pig a little bit during a weird COVID season when they overreacted to, like the national media might have overreacted to some of the rumblings behind the scenes about a practice at NBA or whatever, right? Like, right. So I just think as long as everybody knows the rules in July, there's nothing you can complain about. Honestly, like the game check thing is huge. Like, you're going to dock my pay? I'll go get the vaccine. Thanks.
Yeah, Greg Sankey came out of the gate. That's really the biggest message. That was, as you said, that was essentially the biggest takeaway from Greg Sankey. That was the thing he really hammered away the most at, was getting vaccinated and what that means, and that there were, 6 of the 14 teams who had reached 85, 90%, whatever the threshold percentage was that they were wanting them to hit. The NFL last year did quite a bit of dancing around. And I'll say this just as a side note to all of this. We're going to get to 18 games one day soon enough, and 2 preseason games. It's going to happen soon enough. They're doing it in Canada, and they've only got like 9 teams. They play 18 regular season games. So we're going to get there. So as part of this, think about Tuesday night football last year, Wednesday night. We already have that in college football. I would not be surprised if they can somehow figure out how to do it with like an added bye week into the schedule. So you'd get a bye week, however they did it. If we don't see them start to spread this league out throughout the week, so it's not just Sunday and Monday and Thursday, I wouldn't eventually be surprised. And I've never been in favor of more. I like NFL football the way it is. I don't want the product to be watered down. Like, don't add another date. That's what makes Sunday and Sunday night and Monday and now Thursday special. I didn't even like them adding Thursday night football, but of course I watch every one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually this gets spilled into some extra days in the week. But right now, if we do, it'll be unintentional. But it does sound like they will try to play them the week of if they can. So we may see a little more of that this week, a Tuesday game or whatever it might be.
Yeah. I'm curious about, I think it's a great question about playing games on other nights of the week. Friday nights are sacred, of course, right? For high school athletes. I don't know. I think wasn't it like a year ago, 2 years ago, TV executives were saying, look, there might be we're oversaturating the market with the number of windows that we have. They have 5 basic NFL windows. I do think because of extenuating circumstances, if all of a sudden you can't play a game on a Sunday at noon, but you can on Tuesday if you just wait 2 days, like I think being flexible like that is totally reasonable. I think what we saw last year in college football and in the SEC, where like Vanderbilt was scheduled to play Missouri in like 4 days, but that game was canceled, and now Vanderbilt's going to play somebody else, and Missouri's off because they have COVID, or like that's not none of that's going to happen anymore. Like they're not going to. They've come out and said very clearly we're not doing that. Again, this really isn't controversial. It's not difficult to understand. If every player on all these teams is vaccinated, they avoid all of the other things. So just if they just got a vaccine, and we don't have enough airspace or time in our lives to try to explain why vaccines are important and how public health works. But if you just follow the rules, you have a competitive advantage. There's a reason that Alabama, because we know Vanderbilt is going to have to be at 100%, right? Because you're required to, as every student is, to get vaccinated on that campus. There is a reason Alabama is ahead of everyone else in terms of vaccination rate. Okay? Like, just do what Nick Saban does. Like, it's not that complicated. And there's a reason that, again, there's a reason that Alabama is farther ahead of everybody else in the vaccination rate. So don't come crying to us in October. Like that was my message from all these different things from football, whether it's college or pro. It's people saying don't come yelling at us in October. We told you in July what the rules are.
Yeah, I think that last tweet from Tom Pelissero, you don't get paid if you don't play, because we've seen the NFL more. Just it seems like every time we hear something, it's look, if you're vaccinated, you can go in the lunchroom and you can go anywhere and you can all stand right next to each other all the time. If you're not, then your locker has to be in the bubble and you have to go in. They've already laid all that out. You have very strict protocols if you're not vaccinated just to be in the building. How much more testing, how much more everything you have to have. And so at that point we were like, boy, they're going to make your life real difficult. This thing, no 1/17 of $5 million or 10 or 20, whatever your salary might be, or maybe you make the minimum of $500K, no 1/17 of that. There may be some dudes who see me at Walgreens tomorrow while they're getting their step number 1 because I'm getting my step number 2. There may be some guys down there tomorrow saying, hey, man, I'm not missing a paycheck.
Well, and imagine like if you're at like 87%, imagine the 87% of the players who are following sort of the quote unquote rules, right? And then a game gets missed because like 2 guys don't. Like, can you imagine? Like,
No.
the peer pressure, and again, we're seeing this in a lot of other countries where financial incentives are working real fast to increase vaccination rates, and so I listen. It seems really, really harsh. I understand it. That this is not taking money out of like teachers' pockets, though. This is taking money out of millionaires' pockets. So that part of it doesn't bother me as much, I guess, if you want to go that direction with it. But it's pretty steep punishment, and I don't know. It's pretty easy solution, I guess, right? Like just just go get a shot, guys, and you don't have to worry about this.
There is a coach who has not gotten it in a Power 5 conference. He did not share his reasons, but there is a coach. That's a story that's out there. We'll share who it is next. He's not at his media days. He's doing it on Zoom, like we're doing this on Zoom. We're Zooming with you right now. We zoom into the second hour next. We are about 25 minutes away from Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lee joining us. It's Blaine and Mickey on 104.5 The Zone.
3 the Pro Way, taking you inside the transition from retired athlete to business. Get inside the business studio. Win with WinBet. WTFX Gallatin, Nashville. Titans training camp starts July 27th on your home for Titans football. Trending now at 104.5 The Zone.
Good afternoon. I am Joe Hunk, and the NFL Network is the first to report that the NFL has sent out a memo saying that its clubs will not be rescheduling any football games as far as changing them from week to a totally different week. And what will actually be happening is the team with the outbreak will forfeit and be credited with a loss. Now, there's a couple of kickers in this that makes it really interesting. One, both players on both teams will not get paid for that lost contest. So both teams are affected. And the team that is having to cause the loss is also going to have to pay for all of the financial losses. That is according to the commissioner's office. Believe it or not, the Olympics are actually on the way. And even though the actual formal start is tomorrow, Team USA's soccer team, the women have already lost 3-0 to Sweden, but Team USA softball has already won 1-0 against Canada. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans, the Vols, and Blaine and Mickey right here on 104.5 The Zone.
The 3HL coming up today at 3. Now it's time for Blaine and Mickey on 104.5 The Zone.
We're off and rolling. Hour number 2 on a Thursday. You just heard the dulcet tones of one Joe Hunk. He is filling in for Lucas Panzica. We have one more hour of Braden Gall hanging out with us on the show. It's been fantastic having him on 4 days this week. He's down for one more hour from 440 Sports. You can check him out, 440 Sports, all of his great work with his colleagues at 440 Sports there. We start the hour. There's a couple of interesting things going on with the NFL. You just heard Joe Hunk talking about this. So if you see like a really nice car with a bunch of big NFL-looking guys racing towards a Walgreens near you, it's NFL players taking their teammate to get vaccinated. So they cannot get docked a salary for a week if they are unable to play a game. But the NFL dropping that bombshell today, you will have to forfeit if you are unable to put a team on the field. There will be no makeup week scheduled. A lot of financial ramifications being thrown out there by the NFL. Also, we're going to talk about this potential SEC expansion, which it's not even potential anymore. It's this, the ball is rolling. All the non-knows yesterday from people told you everything that you needed to know. Then you knew it was happening yesterday when no one would categorically deny it in any way, when they just said things like, we don't talk about rumors. Well, that told you your yes. And we teased this at the end of last hour. Maybe we can talk about this some more, maybe in the last segment. But Washington State football coach Nick Rolovich, this came out today, not at Pac-12 Media Days, not vaccinated, and didn't offer the reason why. It's everybody's personal choice. But this is a college football coach who has not gotten the vaccine. This will be a very interesting story because it seems like all leagues are going to the you will forfeit if you can't play model. And you got a coach who – Braden, you played ball. Coaches get in your face. I never had coaches that didn't get in my face. What's Nick Rolovich going to do?
Well, and this is like a far more complicated conversation because it's not. This is where you get into like you could go into the Twitter weeds real fast and start arguing with. It's a bunch of like non-experts arguing with each other about like, well, transmission and well, what about this? And they're young, they're not at high risk, and it's like, well, like none of that. It's so much easier just to say to people like, you probably just need to get a vaccine. If you're going to play this, if you want to do X, you need to do this. And so, again, there's plenty of places in the history of this country in courtrooms where it's been decided that that's very much legal. So I think the NFL is taking it, that step about not paying the players, that seems like you could argue that's a little draconian, that's a little harsh, that's a little heavy-handed, but they just want every game to happen and they want to pay you. And so I don't know. It's just that one I'm torn on because not to get like, again, like Sankey said, this is not a political football, but there are some people that are vax hesitant, and there's lots of, like you said, lots of reasons why somebody might not want to do X, Y, or Z. If you're just sort of like the people that believe in like the microchips being inserted into your bloodstream, then I got nothing for you. But there are plenty of people that are sort of on the fence. And if a guy's going to take away your paycheck, it seems like that might be a good reason to maybe get off sitting on the fence and get the job done. I am curious, and I'd like to know what this, like Greg Sankey called it, if you're not healthy. That was the phrase he used. He said, if your football team is not healthy and you cannot play, I don't think we have those numbers yet from anybody. Have you seen them? Like, I have not seen the NFL put out here's what you need to have to play a game.
The threshold?
Not even just, yes, the threshold, absolutely, but also, if you did have an outbreak, how many days ago, there's so many details that go into sort of creating those guidelines. I just want the fans to have access to all those guidelines, right? Because otherwise what you create is this situation where the SEC just says, oh, Tennessee's going to forfeit this game. And then we all go, well, what do you mean? Why? He says, well, they're not healthy enough. Well, what does that mean? Was it a Monday thing? Was it a Thursday thing? Was it unvaccinated player? I just want everyone to understand the rules as clearly as possible on the front end. And I don't think that's asking too much. I don't think
it is either. Transparency is never a bad thing. Steve, we're going to get to Steve in just 1 second here on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. We were talking about this yesterday, and I said, look, if you ever have a question, why would they do that? The answer is money. Literally, if it involves sports, if it involves college athletics or pro sports, the answer is money. Anything. Like, why did they put 6 rolls of toilet paper in the bathroom instead of 7? I don't even know because of money. Everything is money. Here's the other thing. As much as we all love football, to the eyes of the people at the very top of the food chain, where all the money dribbles down from, football is only a TV show. And they have to create X number of TV programs per year, and they don't want to miss any TV programs. And to us, it's life and death, and you wear the same shoes because they're lucky, and you sweat and you freeze, and it's a TV program to a guy in New York sitting in a big office. He just wants TV programs with the NFL logo attached to them. That's all he cares about, TV programs. So they're going to get their, by gosh, TV programs on every week. That's because they're TV programs, and they're really highly rated.
They're selling widgets, guys. It's not. I mean, that's every time you sit down and watch from noon to 3, you just consumed a widget, an NFL widget like that. Yep. We can go back to Econ 201 on this. It's all about inventory. I agree. And now I'd like to think that there is some concern for the health and safety of the student athlete on the college level.
Yes.
Which Greg Sankey talked a lot about in his opening statement. I'm hesitant to believe everything he has to say. I think he has great intentions. I think a lot of student athletes' injuries, because I've known a lot of them, I think they can slip through the cracks, but I think they have good intentions. We know the NFL doesn't care. We know the NFL is like, we don't care about your health and safety. We're paying you a whole lot of money to risk this stuff. This is why you're going to perform, because we have to, like you said, we have to sell, 16 widgets a weekend. We've got 16 widgets a weekend we've got to sell to our advertisers, and that's all that matters. And you're right, that it's completely about money.
Let's get Steve on from Nashville, who wants to talk about this COVID and NFL. Steve joins us again via the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Steve, man, appreciate you listening. Appreciate you calling. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. First of all, just on the money issue that was just mentioned, if anybody doesn't think it's all about money, look in the Tokyo Olympics as they're having to drop fans, they've got advertisers dropping out. They could lose billions of dollars because of the COVID protocol. So you're exactly right. It's all about the money. Now, you guys may not have the answers to this. They probably haven't put enough details, but I have a couple of quick questions. One, if I'm an NFL player and I get vaccinated, and like we're seeing cases all over the country, including folks that flew to Washington from Texas, I still catch COVID, even though I've been vaccinated. Do I get punished? Do my teammates get punished? Do we have to pay the price of not getting paid when I've done what you forced me to do and got the vaccination? Second, the CDC says 11,000 people have died after getting this vaccine. If I'm an NFL player, I get the vaccination, I die. Does my estate get to collect my remaining salary from the team that forced me to take the vaccine that killed me? And third, when they start talking about college athletics, I think if you'll call over to Vanderbilt, neonatal intensive care unit, the pediatric units. They're seeing women of childbirth years having mid-month menstrual. They're losing babies before birth. If I'm a female college athlete of birthing years and I have later complications because I took the vaccine, do I get to sue the University of Tennessee for $1 billion?
Well, the 11,000, and I appreciate the call. I'll call a little bit of funny math on the 11,000. That 11,000 people have not died from the vaccine. Let's be very clear about this. That's not what killed those people. I think it's fair questions to ask. What does all of this? What does being healthy mean? We just talked about this, and this is the caller's question, which is, again, it's when you have the vaccine, and if you get COVID, which you still absolutely can get COVID if you have the vaccine, you're reducing your rate of hospitalization and transmission, all this stuff, right? The reason you get the vaccine is to protect yourself and other people around you. And so you are not susceptible to some of the testing protocols and some of the things, like there's just different rules because you've been vaccinated, which means your transmission rate is lower and all these other things that, again, I'm not qualified to tell you about. Like, unless you are an epidemiologist, unless you are a doctor or a lawyer for the NCAA or for the NFL or on their medical staff, like, none of us are qualified to write these rules. So these smart, really intelligent people who care about all these things are writing these rules. And all I want to know as a fan of sports are, what are the rules? Like, tell us what the guidelines are. Well, is it, what does not healthy mean? That's what we need to know. Like, when Greg Sankey says, if you're not healthy, you forfeit, what does that mean? That's what we need to find out. And again, if you are all vaccinated, you're not going to get tested, from what I understand. Right? Testing protocols are far different if you're vaccinated versus not, because guess what? The vaccine stops you from going to the hospital, dying, or transmitting the disease. So, like, again, I trust the people in charge to make these decisions and make these rules. We all should be trusting them to make these decisions and these rules. As long as every team knows all the rules on the front end, I just want the fans to know the rules too. Like, I just think we deserve to know what being healthy and what not being healthy means. Like, we deserve to know what those guidelines are. I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and some of these things with a catastrophic outcome of some type, we will learn them in real time as they happen because there's no precedent. You have to go back to 1919 for something like this, a pandemic. So some of these things we will learn in real time if someone is affected in a way that the caller laid out. I will say this, and I know we got to get to a break to get Clark Lee on. Tom Pelissero. So to recap, if an outbreak of unvaccinated NFL players causes a game to be canceled, the infected team forfeits, they take a loss. For playoff seeding, they face financial penalties and possible additional sanctions. If protocols are violated, players on both teams don't get paid. That's his summary tweet that leads with, if an outbreak of unvaccinated players causes. So there you go. That's from Tom Pelissero. He's been a Cracker Jack reporter on NFL stuff for quite some time. Clark Lee happens to be a Cracker Jack coach for Vanderbilt. He joins us next. Blaine and Mickey, Braden Gall hanging out for the Hitman.
Rumors are swirling that the SEC is expanding, but SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey isn't talking. I'm here.
Football, Clark Lee, who joins us now. Coach, I have to start out with this. Noted Tennessee Vol Ron Slay left SEC Media Days with some big impressions, and maybe the thing that hit him hardest was just how awesome your sports coat was yesterday. He spent 5 minutes with us talking about it earlier. So congrats on just having the most amazing fashion show in the whole week.
You know, it's funny because I'm probably the least fashionable coach in the league, but you know what? I've got good people around me, and they set me up for success, huh?
Well, I mean, you surround yourself with the right people, right, Coach, in all aspects, and you're never going to look bad.
That's right, no doubt.
Well, and that's kind of where I want to start with you, Clark, is that how you're approaching this. It feels far more holistic in your approach to each individual student athlete than maybe the vast majority of college football programs are approaching their individuals. Can you try to describe, like, how would you define and describe your approach to sort of looking at every aspect of a student athlete and how that can help you in terms of recruiting and development?
Well, I think, first of all, I appreciate your perspective because that's exactly what we're doing here. And I made the statement yesterday, this is the best football program in the country. And that's exactly what I'm aiming at, right? It's this idea that, as a parent, you can send your child here, know that they're getting a world-class education in a dynamic city that's going to set them up with a network to allow them to be successful long-term. But they're also going to be involved in a program that is going to be centered on holistic development, the development of the person. We think that we coach people, not players, right? And if we can impact the person, we can change the player, but we don't try to take the other approach. And it is unique to Vanderbilt. It is something that you find here. At least our focus on that holistic approach, I think, is different. And that's what separates us. And over time, we have to stay patient and disciplined. This program is for the university community, and the players involved in this program. It's not for anybody else. And so for us, it's about patience and discipline in our process, knowing that the compounding result of the focus on the development of each individual internally will deliver results that everybody will be proud of.
Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lee joins us on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Coach, you talked about taking control of the internal perception of your team. And I would imagine changing what people think about themselves and then letting that carry over to the outside world. What all goes into that process?
Well, I think first it's like we live in a world now where opinions come and opinions go, and they crash on the shore, and they just kind of resolve back into the ocean. And what we have to do here is insulate from that, right? Because we can't allow, and it starts with me, we can't allow the opinions outside the program to impact how we view our experience here. And so you don't put a wall up, but you just insulate, and you allow this program to become what it's meant to be, which is a place where we develop, great teammates, great people, great competitors, and we prepare people for the long-term task of making impact in our communities. And that once you get it insulated, once you kind of cease to allow the opinions of those outside to impact how we view our experience, it's just about steady messaging and teaching, right? Like it's not one statement, that makes it happen. It's not the idea that, hey, we're going to earn jersey numbers here and, no one has a number. I mean, that doesn't work in and of itself. It's the context of those things. It's the messaging around those things. And it's the consistency that we teach about team building and being a good teammate, and how we explain why that's important and how that impacts our performance together. All that bound together becomes this experience that drives the internal perception. And then what happens once people start to be proud of what they're doing and what they're a part of, they start walking with their shoulders back and their chins up, and they start to understand, hey, they are important. I mean, and to me, that's a message I've carried to the team a few times this summer, is like, hey, you are very important here. And that doesn't mean that we're arrogant. That means that we understand when we meet people and we shake their hand and we introduce ourselves, we do that with confidence. We're representative of something that is right in this world, and we're the protectors of that every single day.
Obviously, a lot of sort of tearing down to build back up again, and sort of fresh start, all that good stuff. But you have some pieces on offense that especially at quarterback that certainly help when you step in to sort of rebuild a program like you're doing. Got a lot of weapons on offense, got a lot of experience at almost every position. So what is the goal with the quarterback, with the passing attack, where you have a strength? What is the goal as far as not changing things too much, right? They've worked their entire careers to get to a certain point, but also still doing what you're talking about, right? Tearing them down to build them back up again.
It's interesting because what do you sacrifice in making anything a short-term focus here in terms of the long-term ability to reach your potential as a program? And so I think for me, what was necessary in year one is that we do kind of zero out. I mean, I didn't make assumptions about anybody, and I wanted to make sure that the players knew that there was nothing that they were going to be judged on that had anything to do with past success or past failure. This is all about, how we build anew from scratch. That is a mindset that we take to each day here. So, we zero the day out, and we try to reach for what we want every single day. We talk about earning it every day. That's an approach that we take because, to me, that's what allows for people to unlock success for themselves long term. There's never a sense of arrival. There's never a sense of entitlement. And so as far as the offense goes, I mean, obviously Ken Seals was a starter last year. We feel like we have 3 guys going into fall camp that are competing for that job, and the person that ends up as a starter will have earned it. That can happen in the first week of practice. That can happen in the first day of practice, but more than likely it's going to be through the course of our fall camp and our scrimmaging. And what I know to be true out of competition, the team is strengthened, and the person that ends up in that role will have benefited from the fact that he's had to push himself. As far as the other offensive experience returning, what I'm really interested in is to see, who through the course of our training in the winter, spring, and now summer has unlocked another level of performance. So who is the guy that was waiting for this program to arrive, that needed this program to arrive in the manner in which it has, that's going to allow for them to reach their potential? And that's where it becomes so exciting. Every day is like Christmas Day as a coach, when you have an environment where people are just striving for their best, because you never know when that light goes off. And so it'll be interesting to see how this team matures through fall camp, and what guys step up into roles where they become playmakers for us.
Coach, I know you don't have much time left. You got to leave right around 2:30, but I did want to ask you this just because I'm curious. You are so uniquely qualified. You played at Vanderbilt. A lot of guys who interviewed for the job probably didn't play there. I wanted to ask you this before we let you go. How much does your time as a player and existing and living on campus and in the SEC and in the college football world, you lived as a Vanderbilt football player, how much does that shape how you coach the Vanderbilt football team?
Well, it has a deep impact on me and my perspective and my responsibility, my sense of responsibility to this program. We've done a lot of football alumni events this summer, or as many as we've been able to fit in. But, those are special to me because I'm looking at people who, over the course of, first of all, they spent formative years here. They invested in this program. They're benefiting from the experience of having played football at Vanderbilt and gotten an education at Vanderbilt. And they're looking to me now as the person responsible to create a program that represents the level of competitiveness and success that they expect from Vanderbilt. And that's a huge responsibility. The great thing for me is when I talk to my team every day, these guys we'll be in the same tent in 20 years at an alumni event talking about, our time at Vanderbilt together. So I just view it differently. There's a permanence to my work here that I don't think you can experience unless you're at your alma mater. And what I know about Vanderbilt is that this is breeding grounds for the future leaders of our country. I mean, the people that we're working with every day are important and impactful, and they will be that way if we do our jobs properly. They'll have an impact for the rest of their lives. And so, knowing that about my school, knowing all the greatness that exists on this campus, knowing the excellence that's represented by Vanderbilt University, I want desperately for this program to mirror that and to strengthen the Vanderbilt brand in our community in Nashville and beyond. And we can do that. And it's just a matter of me keeping a focus on what's most important and making sure that I'm growing these young people in this program every single day.
Clark, I feel like you're qualified to give us some book reading recommendations here. Like you got some Seth Godin on the shelf, you got some Art of War, you got some Atomic Habits. Like what? Give me some leadership books that Nashville needs to read.
So one of my favorites that I'm looking at right now is Legacy. It was written about the New Zealand All Blacks. It's one that we teach out of a bunch. It kind of permeates our program. It's a great one. A Man's Search for Meaning is another Viktor Frankl. It's on my shelf. These are books that I like to keep around that I actually share with our players. I try to keep some in stock where I can, depending on what's going on in the world of the player that I'm speaking with, I can share a good read. Because sometimes coaching is one thing, but it's the work they do away from the building that is most impactful. As far as other books, you talked about Atomic Habits. That's one that I've grown to love. The Power of Habit is one, and I'll give you one more that was I thought phenomenal and that I use a bunch. A Man Watching. It's about Anson Dorrance at the UNC women's, or the Man Watching, I should say, the UNC women's soccer coach. That learning about his program and how he built it is fascinating, and there's just a lot of really good competitive cauldron conversation in that book that's a fun read.
Coach, I feel like we've had a cauldron of conversation here with you today, and it's been awesome. And I look forward to the next time that we can have you on. And just promise this, no matter what you've got on, come and hang out with us in the studio one day. And even if you've got sweats on, wear the sports coat so we can see it in person with anything else.
I will. Listen, maybe that becomes the sideline gear, like, let's be honest, this is such a big hit. This may be the best thing I've done since I've become head coach. So I love it. That's perfect.
Well, Ron Slay endorses it. We'll have to get him one too, although it's going to have to be pretty darn big to fit Big Slay.
That's right.
Coach, we know you're busy. SEC media days are over. It's time to put on the chin straps and snap them up and get rolling. So thank you for the time today.
Guys, it was my pleasure. Thanks so much. Y'all take care.
Yes, sir. Clark Lee, Vanderbilt head football coach on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. You can follow him at Coach_Lee.
Surprised that he had a bunch of leadership books ready to go? Are you surprised by that?
Hey, man, as soon as you started asking him that, you could hear him smiling through the phone.
Yep.
Seriously. I know what that sounds like. It's like they tell people in a mascot head, hey, smile under the mask, because people will know your body language when you smile is different. I could literally hear that rascal smiling through the phone as he's thinking, I've got so many books I can recommend here.
Yeah, well, and you can hear it in how he talks. Like, you can hear it in how he thinks. You can hear it in how he delivers his message. Like, go listen to Shane Beamer talk this week, and then go listen to Clark Lee talk. I'm not suggesting that one is going to win more games or that one's the right way or the other. They're just different personalities. And Shane Beamer, I'm not sure, took a breath in 18 minutes of talking on the podium. But that's how he recruits, right? Whereas you look at what Clark Lee does, everything is extremely measured, extremely tempoed, very, very thoughtful. I have no clue if it's going to work at Vanderbilt. Who knows? No one knows if it's going to work at Vanderbilt or not. But talk about a smart dude who's organized and has the leadership sort of. He's thought through everything, man. Like, Atomic Habits is a great read. I recommend it. Legacy, he mentioned about the New Zealand Football Club. Like, that's a really good book too. So you need some recommended readings. We need to get Clark Lee he needs a list, right? He needs to put out a list of all the stuff he's reading.
We need to just start Clark Lee's book club. Let him call him once a week and just bust out like, hey, it's chapter 7. Let's open it up there. Let's get started. What did you think the protagonist was saying here? 100%. We got to load up a Clark Lee book club. I'll say this, and I was deeply embedded in a certain school and covering them, and then I went to work there once in my life. And a coach named Hugh Freeze showed up, and he was the offensive coordinator for a year, and the team won 4 games, and they'd won 4 games before that, and they hadn't had a winning season since 1995. And the coach was let go, and they made a decision to hire a guy named Hugh Freeze. And I get it. Some of you are saying, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. You know all about Coach Freeze. It's all very public. Everything's out there. But he took a team that had one winning season since 1995, and this was the year 2011, and they won 10 games. Because, like this whole Clark Lee thing, where I asked him his own quote about saying, I'm changing the way they feel about themselves internally. We're taking internally and how we feel about ourselves. We're going to change that. And then he talked about guys leave the building. Their shoulders are up. Their chin is up. You know, they're a different guy. I saw 4-win dudes become 10-win dudes because Hugh Freeze made them believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And I saw a program that always found a way to lose. Always found a way to lose. I mean, watching, oh gosh, some Troy receiver with 37 seconds left after we just scored, run 77 yards or whatever it was for a touchdown, because that's how we were going to lose that game. And watching a coach come in and completely change the culture. And after he left, and I'll say it, and this is the third time I've said it this week, Arkansas State, after he left, a team that had not had a winning season from 95 to 2010, they won 10 games, 8 games, 7 games, 9 games, 8 games, 7 games, 8. And then last year they fell off the radar with COVID and everything else. But that's what one guy did in 1 year as OC and 1 year as head coach. So Clark Lee, the message that he's preaching, I get it. It's a hard place to win. It's a really hard place to win. But to me, that message of I'm going to build them up internally, because I know people are going to tell them whatever on Twitter. And I know what fans of other fan bases are going to tweet at them and tell them and yell at them from the bleachers. But I want them to know who they are. And I love the way he's teaching them.
Well, and being holistic and psychological and complex and thoughtful doesn't mean you're not going to yell at somebody, right? Like,
No.
like it doesn't change it. You know, how many Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 50 companies have massive organizational psychology departments, right? Because they know that it is actually better for their bottom line to have a happy, healthy, productive employee, because that person is going to be has much greater output. And so when you're talking about, you know, these words that are like kind of cliche, like, oh, the culture of the program, you know, like we in the media sort of throw them around fairly loosely when we talk about this stuff. But these coaches are 80% psychologist and teacher. Tim Corbin, do you think Tim Corbin is like preaching some revolutionary shift on the defense at Vanderbilt baseball? Or is he teaching the minds, right? Like he's up here between the ears with all those kids. And so I think Clark Lee, you know, I'm with Brent on this. I was a Will Healy guy. I thought Will Healy would have been a great fit. I still think Clark Lee's a hell of a coach, and he's a really smart dude. And I think he's going about it the right way. I don't know if that means Vanderbilt's going to win 7 games every year, but I think they're going to pinpoint better players, be more efficient with recruiting, develop those guys better. And if that means they can be more competitive on Saturdays and they can win 6 games and get to bowl games, I think if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you go, sign me up, man. I'm there.
Yeah, 100%. That's the bar. It's knocking your way to 6 wins and bowl wins. And I'm sure Clark Lee, if he's still listening, which I'm sure that he's not, but if he was, he'd say, you're totally wrong. I'm going to get more than 6 wins. In the interim, though, you go from 0 wins. We were saying this yesterday. What if you get to 3? That's a vast improvement. What if you get 3 more the next year? You're off and running if you're Clark Lee. We're off and running to our final segment of the show when we come back. So what would an SEC look like with Oklahoma and Texas? Who could dream something like that up? Well, the SEC network actually did, and they have a graphic, and they explained it all, something that they categorically, didn't deny, but wouldn't talk about yesterday. Their own network laid out how it's going to look. This is amazing. We'll tell you all about it next.
Get Jason Martin and Ramon Foster on J. Mart and Ramon tomorrow morning from 6 to 10 on 104.5 The